Welcome to the Butterfly Podcast, a space where we explore thoughtful technology, human systems, and the future of interaction. You're listening to our Deep Dive series, where we go beneath the buzzwords and into the structure of ideas that shape tomorrow. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a concept that really gets at attention many of us feel. It's about how we navigate the physical world while we're so connected to our digital devices. Just think about the last time you were lost, or maybe just trying to find your way somewhere complex and new, like a big exhibition hall, maybe, or one of those sprawling transit hubs.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
What's the first thing we do? Like almost instinctively.
Grab the phone.
Exactly. Pull out the phone, unlock it, open the map app, and then your eyes are just glued downwards, right? To that glowing screen, trying to match this little abstract map to, the chaos around you.
Try to make sense of it all.
And while it's supposed to be helping, this act, it often has a downside. Your head's down, you're not really seeing what's around you in your periphery,
Yeah.
and all your attention is on decoding that map. You might bump into people, or you totally miss the actual sign you needed, or, I don't know, some interesting cart on the wall or something.
Or the gate number that's literally right there.
Yes. Because you're busy tracing a line on a tiny screen,
Mhm.
it's a weird kind of friction, isn't it? The tech we use to understand the world, our phone in this specific case, it can actually disconnect us from where we physically are.
That's a great way to put it. It creates this over-attention on the digital side.
Right. And you lose that feeling of being present, aware of the space you're actually moving through. It's tech meant to get you somewhere, but it pulls you away from the experience of being there.
And that description, it perfectly nails the problem this concept we're discussing today is trying to solve. Our usual navigation tools, mostly screen maps, they demand a lot of cognitive effort, constant visual focus.
Yeah.
They're great for planning, maybe seeing the big picture from afar.
Yeah.
But they're just fundamentally mismatched for the act of moving through a busy, real place while trying to stay oriented and, aware.
The tool doesn't fit the task.
Precisely. The interface for looking up static info clashes with the need for dynamic embodied movement.
And that's the problem that led to the idea we're diving into, navigation glasses. No, this isn't something you can buy, right? It's a concept.
Exactly. It's a concept that came out of work in human-machine interaction, or HMI, specifically from an HMI exercise called Basic Interaction Design.
Okay, basic interaction design.
Yeah. And that exercise was really a deliberate attempt to question the default. Like, why must guidance be screen-based? The goal was to experiment, really dig into minimalist, multisensory ways to navigate.
Multisensory, meaning using more than just vision.
Exactly. How could we give directions in physical spaces, especially indoors where GPS gets shaky, without screens, without overwhelming people visually? It's core HMI thinking applied to a really common everyday issue.
Okay, so the starting point is this over-attention problem, phones making us less present. Let's unpack that a bit more. You mentioned losing spatial presence. What's going on in our heads when we're just locked onto that screen?
Well, our brains are amazing at processing visual stuff. But we do have limits, especially with attention. When you're staring hard at that map app, you're using what we call focal vision.
Focal vision.
High resolution, needs conscious thought, interpretation. You're reading, matching symbols to reality. It takes up a lot of your mental bandwidth.
Right.
But at the same time, your brain should be processing ambient vision. That's your periphery. It's lower resolution, often handled more subconsciously. And it's crucial for, not bumping into things, seeing movement, getting a feel for the space.
Keeping your balance, knowing where you are generally.
I have that.
Yeah.
But the screen map, it forces almost all your attention onto that focal demanding task. It steals the resources needed for processing the real world around you via ambient vision.
Oh.
The source material puts it really well. Current tech drives over-attention to the digital, and that directly costs us our spatial presence and awareness. You can be standing in this amazing busy place, but mentally you're mostly inside the map on your phone. You lose that connection to the actual environment.
And the navigation glasses idea is explicitly trying to fix that mismatch.
Exactly. Tech to help you move through the world while staying present in it.
Okay, so it's not just about getting from A to B. It's about how you get there, the quality of that journey. So tell us more about the glasses themselves. What are they, according to the concept?
Well, the first thing to grasp is what they're not. The sources are super clear on this. There are no screens involved. None.
No little projector in your eye, no overlay.
No augmented reality overlay. No little display hovering in your vision. The whole point is to get away from needing to stare at something.
Okay. So how do they guide you then?
They use a mix of other senses: light, vibration, and subtle audio cues.
How does that work?
Imagine tiny LEDs embedded in the frames. They could maybe glow softly, perhaps change color, like green for go straight, maybe amber for wait or caution. Just gentle light in your peripheral vision.
Okay, so you'd notice it without looking at it.
That's the idea. Then tiny vibration motors built into the frame, maybe near your temples. They could give you directional nudges. A little pulse on the left side means turn left. Pulse on the right, turn right.
Tactile feedback, like your phone vibrating, but more directional.
Exactly. And finally, bone conduction audio.
Bone conduction. That's where you hear it through your skull, right? Not blocking your ears.
Precisely. Tiny transducers sit near your temples, sending sound vibrations through the bone to your inner ear. So you can get quiet audio prompts, maybe subtle tone or a specific sound, but your ears are completely open. You can still hear announcements, conversations, traffic, whatever's happening around you.
Which is critical for safety and just knowing what's going on.
Absolutely.
So the person using them isn't looking at anything. They're feeling a buzz, maybe seeing a soft light off to the side, hearing a tiny sound only they can hear.
That's the concept. The design goal is minimal cognitive load. You don't have to stop, think, interpret a complex visual map, translate 2D to 3D. The cues are meant to be intuitive, almost subconscious prompts that guide your movement without demanding your full attention.
Technology you feel, not stare at.
Exactly. The sources call it a design philosophy in wearable form. It's a deliberate move away from just visual information to something more distributed, more ambient.
And this specific idea, it has an origin story. Started back in early 2021.
Yes, the project kicked off then, part of a push to explore HMI beyond just screens. A major inspiration was Don Norman's work.
The design of everyday things.
That's the one. His ideas about user-centered design, understanding how people actually interact with things, that was fundamental. Rethinking navigation cues to be more intuitive, less demanding.
Makes sense.
And the project had a very specific focus: indoor navigation. That's key because GPS is often unreliable inside buildings.
Right. Signals get blocked.
Exactly. So indoor spaces, airports, museums, conference centers often rely on other tech like Bluetooth low-energy beacons, BLE beacons.
Okay.
These little beacons can be placed around a building to pinpoint location pretty accurately. The navigation glasses concept was grounded in using existing tech like BLE to trigger the right light, vibration, or sound cue at the right moment.
So it wasn't purely sci-fi. It was based on tech that's already out there or close to it.
Yes, focused on near-future feasibility.
Yeah.
And interestingly, the sources note that later in 2021, when Meta and Ray-Ban launched their Ray-Ban stories,
The ones with the camera and speakers.
right, while those had a different purpose, mainly capturing audio, the fact that a major company put connectivity and subtle interaction into normal-looking glasses, kind of, validated the form factor.
It showed people might actually wear tech on their face if it looked okay.
Exactly, if it felt familiar and comfortable.
And this is quite different from earlier attempts, like Google Glass back in 2013, was it? Yeah.
Absolutely. Google Glass was ambitious, but it had that little screen. In your view, tried to do many things and, well, face social acceptance issues. It felt intrusive to many.
Yeah, I remember the glass hole term.
Right. The navigation glasses concept, based on the sources, took a much more focused route. Navigation only. Specifically indoor navigation, where GPS fails. And crucially, no screen overlay, just those non-visual and peripheral cues.
Simpler, more targeted.
Yes, a minimalist approach for a specific problem, using practical tech like BLE beacons.
That focus on a defined problem in existing tech seems really practical. And the choice of glasses as the form factor itself. Why glasses?
It wasn't just random. It was a core design choice based on, well, us. How humans work. The big advantage, they naturally sit at eye level.
Okay.
So any visual cue, like those LEDs, is right there in your field of view. But critically, in your peripheral vision, you don't need to tilt your head down. You don't need to raise a device. The info is just available.
Without changing your posture or where you're looking mainly?
Correct. Which leads straight to the hands-free benefit. Think about navigating with your phone. One hand is always busy holding it.
Right.
Now imagine you're in that busy airport queue or a theater lobby. You might be holding luggage, tickets, a drink, maybe wrangling kids.
Yeah, hands are usually full.
So being able to get directions while keeping both hands free, that's a huge practical, plus something the sources really emphasize for places like theaters or conferences.
The glasses. There's always that style question, right? The social awkwardness factor that plagued earlier smart glasses. How did the concept plan to tackle that?
That was flagged as Absolutely critical. If it looks weird or screams tech gadget, people just won't wear it. Functionality isn't enough.
Needs to look good, or at least normal.
Exactly. The sources state the intention was to draw aesthetic inspiration from iconic classic frame designs, things people already like and feel comfortable wearing. The idea is for the navigation glasses to look and feel like stylish, everyday eyewear first.
Tech hidden inside something desirable.
Pretty much. The sources stress that comfortable, recognizable frames are key to adoption. The design has to blend in, make people feel confident. If you feel awkward wearing it, you won't rely on it. The tech needs to disappear into a form factor people actually want to wear.
This loops right back to HMI, human-machine interaction. It's all about how the tech works with the person, not just what the tech does. How does this concept really embody good HMI principles beyond just ditching the screen?
Oh, this is where you see the real depth of thinking in the concept, based on the sources. It's fundamentally about optimizing the interaction for the very specific human task of moving through space.
Okay.
We talked about cognitive load. The glasses manage this through modal distribution, spreading the information load.
Right, using different senses.
Instead of overloading your focal vision like a screen does, they distribute the information. Light for peripheral vision, vibration for touch, bone-conducted audio for hearing. This splits the cognitive burden. It moves the guidance away from that intensive central processing.
Frees up your main attention.
Exactly. Frees up your focal vision and conscious thought to deal with the real-world obstacles, signs, people, the environment itself.
That sounds like something Don Norman would approve of, designing for how people actually perceive things.
Absolutely. It's using cues that fit the context, delivering info through the sense and in the way that's best for someone who's moving. It also really resonates with Amber Case's work on calm technology.
Calm technology. Technology that informs but doesn't demand attention.
That's the core idea. The glasses aim to subtly inform your path without yelling for your focus like a bright screen or a loud notification often does.
So the information comes through channels that aren't fighting for the same mental resources you need just to walk around safely.
Precisely. And that connects to the next principle.
Yeah.
Minimalism and feedback. Why less is often more in HMI, especially when you're moving.
Okay, less is more. How so?
Well, complex interfaces require you to stop and interpret them. Subtle signals, if they're consistent, become almost second nature. They build trust. The sources mention the click of a car's turn signal.
Ah, yeah. You just hear it, you know it's working. You don't stare at the light.
Exactly. It's a simple, non-visual background cue that confirms something reliably without needing your direct focus.
So the navigation glow from the glasses is like that?
Similar idea. It's not a complex display, just a soft color in your periphery. Your brain registers it easily, maybe even subconsciously after a while. The vibration is a physical nudge. There's simple, distinct cues. They require minimal mental processing and become linked to specific actions through repeated use.
Simplicity is key, like the PDF source mentioned. Clear codes, consistent cues.
Right. Minimal text, ideally zero during active navigation.
Yeah.
It all leads to an intuitive, low-effort experience. This also ties into one of Jacob Nielsen's heuristics, recognition rather than recall. The cues should feel natural, easily recognized, not something you have to actively remember the meaning of each time.
That's a huge contrast to interfaces for, say, reading email on your phone. Those need your full focus. Interfaces for motion seem totally different.
Completely different philosophy. An interface for information consumption, like email, is about presenting rich detail visually. An interface for motion needs to give you just enough info right now clearly to keep you moving.
Speed and clarity are key.
Absolutely. You need left or right, stop, or go immediately. And the system needs to handle what the sources call low-resolution input, meaning it understands if you're walking, turning, or stopped without needing precise screen taps, which are hard when you're moving.
It works with your natural movement.
Yes. And this really aligns with Mark Weiser's original vision of ubiquitous computing, or Ubicomp.
Where tech disappears into the environment.
Exactly. His idea was that the most profound technologies are the ones that weave themselves into the fabric of everyday life until they're indistinguishable from it. They disappear from conscious thought. These glasses aim for that, making the navigation tech itself fade into the background of your physical activity.
Another HMI angle mentioned is sensory inclusivity. How does using light, vibration, and sound make it more inclusive?
Well, traditional tech often leans very heavily on vision and maybe audio. That works well for many people, but not everyone.
Right.
By bringing in tactile feedback, vibration, and bone-conducted audio that doesn't block your ears, you create more ways for information to get through. Alternative pathways.
So vibration would work even if it's really noisy.
Exactly. Think of
Yeah.
a loud train station or a packed conference floor. Audio cues get lost, vibration cuts through. Or conversely, in a super quiet place like a library or theater, audible alerts are disruptive. Vibration is silent and private.
Okay, that makes sense.
And while the sources don't bill these specifically as accessibility devices, the multisensory approach inherently makes the system less dependent on any single sense. That could open doors for people with certain visual impairments, getting key navigation info non-visually.
Or maybe people who get overwhelmed by too much visual or auditory input.
Potentially, yes. Individuals with sensory processing differences may be related to neurodiversity like ADHD or autism. For some, lots of screen info or sounds can be overwhelming. Getting the core direction via discrete vibration or a quiet, non-blocking sound could seriously reduce that sensory load.
It's about offering options.
It is. The sources say by expanding input-output to the whole body, we also expand who technology includes. Thinking holistically visual, auditory, tactile together, as the PDF's lessons learned point highlights, creates a richer, more adaptable, and potentially more universally usable experience. It aligns with Nielsen's heuristic of flexibility and efficiency of use, catering to different user needs and contexts.
Okay, let's make this really concrete. The PDF source described a user going into an auditorium. Can you walk us through that scenario using the cues we've talked about?
Sure. So imagine you're at a big venue, multiple auditoriums, you've got your seat number, but finding the exact hall, the right level, the specific seat. It's confusing.
Yep, been there. Phone comes out.
Right. But here, you're wearing the navigation glasses. As you get near the entrance area, maybe the frames start to glow softly amber in your periphery. The PDF cue list suggests this might mean something like, prepare to enter in 5 minutes, or maybe input B, wait 5 more minutes. Basically, hold on a moment, it's a passive signal.
Okay, just a gentle heads up.
Then, a few minutes later, you hear a quiet, distinct tone through the bone conduction. Only you hear it. The mapping suggests this could be the enter now cue. So you head into the venue.
Eyes up, looking around, not at a screen.
Exactly. Now, inside, you need to find your specific hall or aisle. Let's say you need to turn left. You feel a clear vibration pulse on the left temple of the glasses.
Ah, the directional nudge.
Yep. Turn right.
Okay.
Pulse on the right. You need to go straight down a busy corridor. Maybe you see a specific simple light pattern in your peripheral vision corresponding to the straightforward cue in the PDF.
Guiding you step by step.
It continues like that. When you reach the correct row for your seat, perhaps you get another cue, maybe a different light pattern or a unique tone, the correct row signal.
Confirmation.
And then finally, as you're right by your assigned seat, you get the correct place cue. The PDF mentions an input A confirm associated with this, which hints maybe you could tap the frame to acknowledge, but the core guidance is still hands-off, screen-free.
Okay. And does it handle leaving too?
Yeah, the scenario includes exit cues, maybe that amber glow again, or a tone for prepare to exit in 5 minutes, that a final exit now and device off signal when guidance is done. It even mentions an error state, like a red glow if, say, entrance is not possible anymore. This relates to Nielsen's visibility of system statics, always letting the user know what's going on, even if it's an error.
Wow. So through that whole process, finding the entrance, the aisle, the row, the seat, your eyes are free. You can watch where you're going, see the layout, notice the row numbers on the actual seats. You're present.
That's the core idea. The digital guidance supports your engagement with the physical world. It doesn't replace it or demand you disengage from it. It integrates into the flow.
This feels like it taps into a bigger shift, doesn't it? Moving away from tech that constantly demands our attention towards quieter assistance. The sources call it less tech.
That phrase, less tech is really interesting. It's not simpler technology necessarily under the hood, but it feels less intrusive. There's definitely a growing, maybe weariness. With constant screens, endless notifications, people want the benefits, guidance, info, but without feeling perpetually distracted.
Yeah, screen fatigue is real.
And this concept fits right into that emerging idea of ambient assistance. It's the opposite of the constant attention model. Instead of bright screens and loud alerts fighting for your focus, ambient tech works quietly in the background. It gives you what you need, when you need it, without disrupting your main activity.
So these glasses are like a tangible example, maybe a gateway to what that ambient layer of computing could feel like.
I think that's a great way to see it. They give physical form to ambient intelligence. A device that lives with you, offers subtle contextual help, but doesn't demand your eyeballs. It's a definite counterpoint to the assumption that the future has to be more screens, more augmented reality overlays.
It ties into that quote from the sources, if your tools make you look away from life, maybe it's time to change tools.
Exactly. It embodies that philosophy. That tech should enhance our ability to live in the world, not build a wall between us and it.
But thinking about this kind of subtle, integrated tech, the sources also raise some really important ethical points, framing it as design as ethics, not just aesthetics.
Yeah, and this is crucial. The sources make a distinction. Good design reduces friction, makes things easier. Great design, though, thinks bigger. It considers the impact, the potential for dependency. It aims to reduce dependency where it can.
Okay. So what kind of ethical questions does this raise?
Several key ones, like failure modes. What happens if the system crashes or loses connection? If you're totally reliant on these subtle cues, are you suddenly stranded? Does it fail gracefully, like clearly signaling it's offline, or does it just stop, leaving you lost? This touches on Nielsen's help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors.
That's a big one. Reliability is paramount.
Immense. Then there's the idea of ownership of space. If a venue puts this system in, who controls the guidance? Is it just navigation? Or could they subtly influence where people go, what they pay attention to? Does the user still have agency?
The potential for manipulation, even subtly.
It's something to consider.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, trust. Without a map on a screen to visually check, you're putting your faith entirely in the system's accuracy. One wrong turn, one bad cue, and that trust could evaporate instantly. Building and keeping that trust for an interface that works implicitly requires exceptional reliability.
Yeah, you have to really believe it's taking you the right way.
And that leads to the final reflection point from the sources. Every interface teaches a behavior. Which behaviors are we normalizing?
Okay.
A screen map normalizes looking down, focusing digitally. These glasses normalize trusting ambient cues, staying present physically. The design choice isn't just about function, it shapes how we interact with technology and the world.
That really elevates the conversation beyond just, is it cool tech?
Yeah.
What kind of interaction, what kind of world are we designing?
Wow. And this whole concept, it seems built on a lot of existing ideas we've touched on.
Definitely. The source is explicitly connected to several key themes in HMI and tech thinking. First, that core problem. Overuse of screens, hogging our central vision, killing spatial awareness.
Right.
Then the solution space, ambient interaction guiding us with less distraction, information flowing in the background. The glasses themselves become an archetype for screenless direction, proving navigation doesn't need a screen.
Okay.
The use of multisensory feedback is explicitly framed as creating a more inclusive interface, less reliant on just vision or hearing. We covered that, yeah.
Philosophically, it links directly to calm technology. Ember Case's idea of tech informing, not demanding, receding when not needed. It connects to Mark Weiser's early vision of ubiquitous computing tech disappearing into the environment, becoming seamless.
The disappearing tech idea.
And underpinning it all, that influence of Don Norman, designing for human cognition, using intuitive cues that match how we actually perceive the world. The PDF even recommends reading The Design of Everyday Things.
So it's not just a random idea, it's grounded in decades of thought about how humans and machines should interact. And these principles, they could go way beyond just finding your seat, right?
Oh, absolutely. Indoor navigation was the specific exercise, but the core ideas, subtle, multisensory ambient guidance, have huge potential elsewhere. The sources bring up accessibility.
Providing non-visual guidance.
Or less visually demanding guidance, yes.
Yeah.
That can be life-changing for some people with sensory impairments. Think about wellness. Imagine being guided through stretches, yoga, or meditation with gentle vibrations or quiet tones instead of staring at a video. Or getting subtle posture feedback during your workday.
Without a screen constantly interrupting you.
Right. And situational awareness. Getting ambient cues about your surroundings, maybe a vibration if someone's approaching quickly from behind, or a light cue about a dynamic change up ahead, like a closed path, all without needing your direct attention.
The sources also laid out 3 futures that need calm navigation. What were those? They sounded pretty interesting.
They really paint a picture of why this kind of less demanding guidance might become not just nice, but necessary.
Okay.
First is urban environments with invisible complexity. Future cities, layered with data transit updates, sensor readings, personalized routes. Try and navigate that with just a screen could be overwhelming.
Information overload.
Exactly. These glasses could act like an ethical AR, filtering all that data down to the essential subtle cues you need right then, helping you navigate the smart city without being visually bombarded by it.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the second one?
Shared public spaces, where attention is a resource. Think libraries, public transport, quiet co-working spots, places where focus or tranquility matters.
Right, where loud phone calls or notification sounds are disruptive.
Precisely. Screens also create that bubble effect. The glasses offer silent intelligence. Guidance via vibration or bone conduction respects that shared space, auditory and visual.
Keeping the tech personal and unobtrusive.
Yes. And the third feature connects back to our well-being. Mental health and cognitive load management. We know constant information flow contributes to stress and fatigue.
Definitely feel that sometimes.
An interface that's inherently less demanding on our attention could help mitigate that. The sources even speculate. Maybe the system could adapt its guidance style. If it sensed you were stressed or hesitant, perhaps it offers slower, calmer cues.
Wow, adaptive calm guidance.
It really broadens the scope of HMI, doesn't it?
Uh.
It's not just about task efficiency anymore. It's about designing interactions that support our cognitive health, our ability to be present, tech that works with our human nature, not against it.
That's a really powerful vision. Tech that fades into the background, seamlessly integrated. So wrapping this all up, the main takeaway from exploring these navigation glasses, it really feels like that quote. We don't need more tech in our face. We need more space around it.
Mm-hmm.
These glasses or concepts like them, they aren't necessarily the final answer, but they represent a serious recalibration, rethinking how we approach movement, guidance, and just being present in the world. They challenge that screen-first default.
They point towards different possibility.
Yeah, a future where tech assists us, but lets us keep our eyes and our attention on the world around us. This dive into the concept, the HMI thinking behind it, the potential, it really makes you consider how design choices shape our experience. So here's something to think about. Imagine if more of the technology you rely on every day operated on this principle informing you without constantly demanding your attention. What part of your daily life would you most want to see redesigned with that kind of calm or ambient approach? Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Bytterfly Podcast Deep Dive. If you enjoyed this conversation, explore our other episodes from design ethics to system thinking wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, some of the best technologies are the ones you hardly notice.